It goes without saying at this point that 2018 was a fantastic year for gaming. Practically every month we had another hit that took the world by storm. Be it the massive AAA titles we'd expect like God of War, Spider-Man, Red Dead Redemption 2, or Smash Bros, gems like Octopath Traveler, or games that totally came out of nowhere like Celeste. Fun fact, all of those games I just listed came out in different months. I'm not kidding when I say that every single month there was something new last year. With how spread out the big, well-known titles were in 2018, I can guarantee that we've all missed some of the smaller titles, the ones you may forget even came out. Remember Shadow of the Tomb Raider? Yeah, that came out like a week after Spider-Man, I forgot too. Before I look at my favorite games of the year in my annual countdown list, I want to take some time to highlight some of the games that you've missed in 2018. They may not all be Game of the Year material, but sometimes you don't need that. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that no more than 5 of you have played every game on this list, and I say that because I haven't even played them all. To make sure I covered even games I missed, I'm bringing on my good friend TokenGeek to touch on a few of his underrated favorites from the year.
It's like Bolt said, I've played a few games on this list that he simply hasn't, and there's a good chance not many of you have either. 2018 may not have matched the caliber of 2017's groundbreaking titles, but so many great games did come out this year. Many of them just flew under the radar.
Without further ado, let's look at 2018's more forgotten games. I'm starting off with the newest game on this list, StarLink Battle for Atlas. Released in October, only 10 days before Red Dead Redemption 2, Ubisoft's interstellar adventure was a surprise reveal at this year's E3. Mainly because it's 2018 and Ubisoft is trying to sell a toys-to-life game. Kinda missed the boat on that one, guys. By swapping out ships, pilots, and weapon types on this custom controller dock, players can change their ship to their liking in real time. It's a neat idea, but I'll be totally honest, my eyes glazed over when I saw the toy gimmick. It feels wrong to have to pay real money for different elemental weapons that are required for different planets and enemies. Thankfully, there are 3 solutions to this. 1, your weapon elements don't really matter much at all, meaning that there's no real reason to buy new parts anyway. 2, if you buy the game digitally, you get everything for free, and 3, everything is available for half the price digitally even if you do buy it physically. Even with all of this in mind, I still had no real intention of picking up the game, but when I saw it for half price during Black Friday, I bought the physical copy anyway for one key reason: Star Fox. The Nintendo Switch version of StarLink features exclusive content starring the Star Fox crew, as well as seamlessly integrating Fox and the gang into the entire campaign. That means you don't have to play as StarLink's new characters if you don't want to, and you'll be missing just about nothing. Naturally, that's exactly what I did. The Switch starter version comes with Fox, the R-Wing, 1 fire gun, and 1 ice gun, and you can beat the entire game with just this setup. The best way I can describe StarLink is to imagine it like a fun No Man's Sky. Seamlessly flying from the surface to space in real time feels awesome. Exploring these different worlds and learning about new species is really neat, and the combat is fun enough. It's no Star Fox, but it's definitely passable by its own right. Now that I think about it, passable is a great way to describe the entirety of StarLink. This is a really good example of a game that's just good. Not fantastic, not bad, just good. After all, there's a ton of content here for people that really dig the experience. Hell, an update just came out that added even more stuff. But with that said, the game will get pretty repetitive after a while. With the Star Fox integration standing out as the star of the show though, those of you without a Switch are missing out on what I would say is a key component of StarLink. And while I appreciate that digital buyers can ignore the Toys to Life gimmick entirely, and that you don't necessarily need the other weapon types or anything to enjoy the game, I think that any StarLink sequels should just drop the toy part entirely and focus on making the core gameplay a little bit more engaging. Or just let these guys make an open world Star Fox game with more fleshed out mechanics. I'm totally cool with that too.
Easily one of the most talked about games on our list, Dead Cells is largely known for the controversy surrounding it rather than the gameplay. To give just a brief rundown for those who haven't heard of said controversy, a smaller YouTuber by the name of Boomstick Gaming came forward just after IGN had posted their review of Dead Cells, providing substantial evidence that former editor Philip Mewson plagiarized his review. That video garnered 1.7 million views in a matter of weeks. Of course, Boomstick Gaming's channel blew up as it should, and all of Philip's past works were promptly scrubbed by thousands, leading to the discovery of far more plagiarism than anybody ever expected. This was a massive controversy, one that overtook a good part of the gaming side of YouTube in the month of August. But whenever Dead Cells was mentioned, it was always seemingly in the context of this specific topic. No one ever really talked about the game itself. As I'm sure you're able to tell by the gameplay, this is a Metroidvania, but it's also a roguelike. In fact, its creators' motion twin have dubbed it a Roguevania, one that combines the best elements of either genre. And yeah, it basically is the perfect blend of the two. It is most easily comparable to Castlevania Symphony of the Night, as you traverse different areas using whatever weapons or abilities you choose. Well, sorta, and this is where the roguelike bit comes in. Of course, whatever weapons you start with or find laying around are completely random, generated from a pool of weapons, magic, or even shields that you found throughout your various runs. From here, you'll be fighting enemies and bosses, sometimes earning power-ups and weapons, but most of the time looking for these cells, as well as gold that drop on occasion so that you can upgrade your kit between each part of the world. When you die, you lose everything but your permanent skill upgrades, and start all over from the beginning. It is a game that has a lot of depth to it, so much that you'll be often forced to utilize weapons you may not like in different ways to adapt to a specific enemy type or boss. Not to mention, of course, it is a roguelike. Even when you finish the game, there will likely still be more to discover and unlock. So it's a game definitely worth looking into if you're wanting something you can pour hundreds of hours into. I think it's perfect for the pick up and play style for handheld mode on the Nintendo Switch.
Moving over to the PlayStation side of things, one of my most anticipated games of 2018 was an RPG that's flown pretty under the radar, Ni no Kuni 2: Revenant Kingdom. I can't tell you how excited I was for this game. The first Ni no Kuni blew me away, and when I first booted 2 up and heard that gorgeous rendition of the series theme, I got chills. I even have notes down for a Ni no Kuni 2 review that I wanted to put out earlier this year, but as you can see, that one didn't happen. Oops. After several delays, Ni no Kuni 2 finally released only a couple of weeks before God of War's review embargo ended, leaving this absolute gem with very little time to capture the spotlight and people's hearts. With the first game's fantastic story somewhat muddied by the less than stellar Pokemon-esque mechanics and absolutely useless computer allies, Level 5 aimed to develop a stronger gameplay experience to make Ni no Kuni 2 the total package. I'm glad to say that they nailed it, providing probably my single favorite variation of that Kingdom Hearts action RPG style of gameplay. Disappointingly, at the same time that Level 5 was perfecting the combat, just about everything else took a step back. While much of the original development team returned, the legendary Japanese animation studio known as Studio Ghibli had no role in Ni no Kuni 2's visual style. In place of Ni no Kuni 1's gorgeous, hand-drawn 2D cutscenes were these far stiffer 3D scenes and a whole bunch of voiceless text box conversations. And while that's not a big deal, it kept sticking out in the back of my mind while playing. Consequently, I also couldn't help but feel that Evan, Roland, and the whole gang here paled in comparison to Oliver and Mr. Drippy. It takes so long to really get a feel for these characters, and after playing the opening chapter, there's a lot of mindless go here and do this that makes Revenant Kingdom feel like it's on autopilot. The cities and different locales are still full of life and spirit though, and once you get past the early stumbles, the game opens up with countless side quests that help Evan recruit people to his new kingdom of Evermore. Oh yeah, by the way, this child is trying to make a new kingdom to take over the world with friendship. I don't have a joke for that. That's just the game. The kingdom building mechanic is decent, but it's certainly not close to the level of Level 5's work with Dark Cloud nearly 20 years ago. You can't choose where things go, you just decide the order in which to build and who to put in charge of each building. At the end of the day, it's similar to Ni no Kuni 1's bulletin boards, a way to encourage you to complete all of the surprisingly fun side content, but not killer in its own right. I just wish you could explore Evermore like you can every other town in the series. This top-down chibi focus doesn't make Evermore feel like it's mine. In short, Ni no Kuni 2 throws a lot of stuff at the wall, and at points it feels disjointed compared to its predecessor. It's sort of a jack of all trades, and in Level 5's pursuit to improve mechanically, they found a way to lose ground everywhere else. But I still found myself hooked to the gameplay and to completing the side quests. This series really makes you feel like a good person as you constantly help others, and it succeeds at making you feel rewarded for doing even the most minor of objectives. Considering Revenant Kingdom goes for $20 or less nowadays, I think it's, for all its flaws, still a game worth at least trying if you haven't played it yet. Remember how the internet totally exploded upon seeing the trailer for that Detective Pikachu movie? That's not just a movie. Detective Pikachu came out on the 3DS earlier this year in the West and came out 2 years ago in Japan. I've wanted to play this game for years, but by the time it was announced, I had just about given up hope that we would see it at all. And then finally, in March, actually on the same day as Ni no Kuni 2 coincidentally, we finally got to see this ridiculously stupid idea come to life. For those of you that are unaware, Detective Pikachu is an adventure game set in the Pokemon universe. You play as Tim Goodman, a boy searching for his missing father Harry, a renowned detective. While retracing his dad's steps, Tim meets Harry's partner Pikachu, who can suddenly speak, although only Tim can understand him. The two of them team up to try and figure out what happened to Harry, and begin unraveling a city-wide mystery involving Pokemon going berserk out of nowhere. Again, this game sounds ridiculous, and it is. It's unlike any Pokemon game I've ever played, main series and spin-off alike, and yet I think I enjoyed my time with it more than pretty much any other Pokemon that I've played. This deep-voiced Pikachu is hilarious at first, but he quickly fits into the world of Rhyme City. There are over 100 Pika prompt cutscenes that show Pikachu in different scenarios, and each one finds a way to be even more charming than the last. These scenes highlight just how good this game looks too. Detective Pikachu pushes the 3DS to, and arguably even past its limits, and it stands out as the best looking game on the platform. With a strikingly good voice cast and somehow arguably even more spoken dialogue than the 40 hours of Ni no Kuni 2, it's just insane what Detective Pikachu accomplishes. I'll be sorely disappointed if the coming 8th generation of Pokemon doesn't take at least something out of Detective Pikachu's playbook. Hopefully that something isn't this game's handholding though. We've had enough of that and then some. Detective Pikachu plays sort of like a kid's first foray into the adventure game genre. The puzzles and mysteries are relatively easy to solve, to the point that you'll normally have the solutions well before the game's ready to let you progress. But as with many detective-styled games, there's usually only one sequence of events and one solution to every problem here, meaning that you'll often be waiting for Detective Pikachu to catch up to you. That's absolutely not a deal breaker though, not with how charming this game is, but it gets a little tedious is all. I know the game's made predominantly for kids, but with an optional super easy mode next to the already easy main mode, a slightly faster paced normal mode would have been nice here. Either way, Detective Pikachu was far better than it had any right to be, easily becoming the best Pokemon game in the last several years, and one of my favorite Pokemon experiences, period. With how much fun I had here, I can guarantee you that I'll be seeing the film in theaters. And I hope there's more to come from this stupid, amazing side universe.
Let it be known that 2018 was the best year Castlevania has seen in a very long time, and no, there was no new Castlevania game this year. Of course, the second season of the animated series came out on Netflix, which that was phenomenal. Simon and Richter are both playable characters in Smash Ultimate, and Alucard is an assist trophy. There was even that Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night combo pack that released back in October. But that's not what I mean. I'm mainly talking about the other Castlevania-like game that accompanied Dead Cells this summer. This is none other than Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. Meant to be a precursor to this year's inevitable release of Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, Curse of the Moon stood as a way to not only introduce people to the spiritual successor, but really to introduce new players into the style of Castlevania games as a whole. I was one of those new players that they drew in and spent a good 30 to 40 hours playing Curse of the Moon. What I like most about this is just how many run-throughs of the game that there are. You can play with all 4 characters, or just the first, gaining abilities from the other 3 after you kill them, as well as 2 post-game modes that work off the actual lore that will play into Ritual of the Night. Curse of the Moon is not just a way to reel new players in, but it really is the first game in this new Bloodstained franchise. I, for one, applaud the work Indie Creates did with this project. I know retro revivals are starting to feel like an oversaturated market to many, as so many games just don't do it right, but Curse of the Moon is one that I feel nails everything it aimed to do. I'd even go as far as to say that this is probably my second favorite game from this year. If you haven't played it yet, please do. It's available on every system, including the 3DS and the PlayStation Vita. It's fairly cheap too, so there's no real reason to not pick it up.
As our next game's title implies, Minute is not a very long game. Really, it can't be. The whole premise of this Zelda-esque adventure game is to give you a single minute in this world before you die and have to restart. That probably sounds incredibly tedious to most of you, and trust me, I understand. That's something I worried about for a long time myself. It wasn't until my buddy Mykonos fan sang the game's praises that I decided to give Minute a real look. After all, he and I tend to share opinions so often that we joke about being the similar opinion twins. If he liked it, I had to trust his judgment. Total shocker, he was spot on. Some twist on this statement has been used to describe Minute 1,000 times by now, but this game is the shorter, 8-bit equivalent of what made Majora's Mask so compelling. And since Majora's Mask is one of my favorite games of all time, that's very high praise. Yes, you have what sounds like an incredibly short time to explore the world, but the world is designed around that. Paths don't branch for too long so that you can actually reach the ends. This game's understated version of quests are short, sweet, and rewarding, and you'll often find new houses that you can use to respawn at in future runs, allowing the world to expand further and giving you even more room to explore. Most importantly, and most similarly to Majora's Mask, some features of this world, such as the items you pick up, are more permanent features, letting you solve different puzzles over the course of multiple runs and making sure the game isn't entirely Groundhog Day. Perhaps my only complaint about the game is that I'm not a huge fan of the black and white visuals, but even they grew on me over time. That's more of a complaint in the sense that this game does everything it can to try and turn you off before you try it, and it's a game that any 2D Zelda fan should absolutely try. The more in the flow of the game that you become, the longer and longer that a single minute seems to be, and the more it feels like you can get done. In other words, this is a really neat game. Like I said a moment ago, Minute doesn't overstay its welcome either, taking up all of a couple hours of your time to ensure that the gimmick doesn't start to get on your nerves. In spite of that short runtime, the repetition ensures that the world of Minute sticks out in your mind long after you've put the game down. Again, for those of you that have played Majora's Mask, this all sounds very familiar, and that's exactly why you should be very excited about Minute. While we're talking about the games that you've missed in 2018, I've gotta give a shout out to the PSVR in general, because 2018 has been an excellent year for VR owners. It's still not exactly that killer platform that we want it to be, but two games in particular hit PSVR last year that I want to briefly touch on: Tetris Effect and Astrobot. I mainly want to talk about Tetris Effect though, because I've got a whole lot more to say about Astrobot than I can do in just this video. In short, Astrobot is, in my opinion, the reason to buy a PSVR. This adorable platformer is in essence a hybrid of Mario Galaxy 2 and Mario 3D World, but in VR, with your head as the camera throughout. Like I said, I plan on talking about this game a lot more very soon, but if you have a PSVR and you don't own Astrobot, you absolutely need to. Meanwhile, Tetris Effect might just be my favorite version of Tetris that I have ever played. This one is thankfully available for all PS4 owners out there, with the VR mode as a heavily recommended enhancement. Directed by Tetsuya Mizuguchi, the mind behind games like Rez and Lumines, Tetris Effect continues his attempt to develop games that allow players to experience synesthesia. Or, in other words, the game combines its visuals with the controller's vibration and an original soundtrack that shifts in real time as you play the game in order to turn what was once a regular game into an experience that you can feel throughout your entire body. Named after the actual Tetris effect, where people who play Tetris for enough time start seeing games of Tetris all around them in the real world, this game is almost indescribable for me. Rather than the usual consistent difficulty progression with Tetris, where the game gets faster the longer you play, Tetris Effect adjusts the game's pace around the different themed areas you're in, from the desert to a vibrant city to swimming underwater with dolphins or jellyfish. Some levels will start slower and slowly build the tension, getting your heart pumping more and more with anticipation, before jumping to a breakneck pace where you struggle to even rotate a piece before it locks in place and moves on to the next one, making you panic, causing mistakes, crushing the entire flow that you had going, and leaving you breathless by the end. If you find yourself really stuck in a pinch, there's even a new zone mechanic that you can activate once you fill the zone meter, and this freezes time, allowing you to pinpoint your drops and clear 8, 12, or even 16 lines in one satisfying swoop. This is another game that I want to talk about in more detail soon, so I'll cut it off with this. The moment that Tetris Effect drops to $20, I will recommend it to absolutely everybody, because even on a regular PS4, this experience is more than worth it. I've already just about beaten the main journey mode twice, and there's still loads of content left in the focus and relax modes. These two games alone practically justify the cost of the PSVR headset. That's how good they are. Considering Astrobot is often bundled with the PSVR, and that bundle likes to drop in price pretty frequently, now's as good a time as ever to give it a shot. And if you find the right bundle, you may even get another 2018 game that you missed, the adorable puzzle platformer Moss. I don't really have much to say about that one. That's also a game that I missed in 2018. I've had it since it came out, I just haven't had time to play it. But I know it's pretty good from what my friends have said, so subscribe for this high-quality content.
When Bolt invited me to come onto the video, we both knew of one game we had to mention. The Messenger is yet another retro revival from this year, but much like Curse of the Moon, it's one that does it right. Though, instead of being inspired by the likes of Castlevania or Mega Man, The Messenger aimed to be a modern Ninja Gaiden, with extremely tight platforming sections and a great amount of challenge. The only thing is, neither of us have really played it enough to talk about it in depth.
Yeah, I'll be totally honest, this is a game that I just haven't touched at all yet, even though I bought it not long after it came out. I've been really excited for The Messenger too, but like all of these games really, it's a casualty of 2018 being so packed full of games. We haven't even mentioned stuff like the 3 Yakuza games that came out this year, the surprise hit Kingdom Come Deliverance, and at least one game that I'll be touching on in my Game of the Year countdown video coming out in the next few weeks. I'm sure that there are even more games that both of us have missed though, so if you have one of those in mind, chime in down in the comments below. If we helped you remember a game that you meant to pick up, or introduced you to one that wasn't on your radar, make sure you hit the like button and maybe send the video out to some of your friends so that YouTube does that whole YouTube thing and shares it out to more people. All these developers need to eat after all, so the more people we can help introduce to these games, the better for everybody. Special thanks to TokenGeek for joining on for this video. I had him record a clip telling you to go check out his channel, but I'm not gonna need that because I'm gonna do it myself. If you enjoy my videos, you'll enjoy his videos at least as much, so please go check this guy out. Token puts out fantastic videos pretty much every week. And from what I've seen of his upcoming videos, I really think 2019 is gonna be his breakout year. Get on that train now before he blows up, especially if you're a fan of some more Nintendo-focused content. You'll thank me later.
Thank you so much for having me on this video, Bolt. Your kind words really do mean a lot.
With all that said, thank you very much for watching, and as always, stay golden.